Hey guys, thanks for stopping by my channel today. My name is Gina and I believe there's more to life than looking good, but you've got to look good too. Today, we're going to try to survive and live longer and look the best we can and not die of cancer. That's a pretty good goal for today. I have been so excited to do this video, partly because I appreciate how excited you guys were when I kind of offered it up as a video. You guys were very enthusiastic about it. And as it turns out, it is super important stuff. Today I'm going to talk about sunblock, SPF, sunscreen, how that affects our beauty, how it affects our skin, our life. I thought this was going to be a pretty simple topic, like what is sunscreen, what is SPF? And it turns out it is so much more complicated than that. Which is why I'm excited to bring you the information. So today is going to be one of my info chats. You guys know that I am notorious for doing my car chats or my chit chats, where we talk about life and ourselves and all that good stuff about how we can kind of feel the best that we can. I also love doing research and I love learning about things and I love sharing what I learn in a simplistic way. And so this video in particular will be one of my info chats where I'm going to share with you what I have learned about this very complicated topic of sun protection. I am never going to stop doing my beauty chats, which is where I talk about makeup and skincare and hair and body and all that stuff, because I love talking about products too. And all three of those things I really feel like work together and they make me feel like a complete package, and so I want to do the same for you. So if you're not a subscriber to the gcrew, I invite you to be, but as I said in my last video, more importantly than that, if you like these sorts of videos where I'm giving you information, then definitely give this video a thumbs up so that way it can kind of get out there. This is actually one of those videos, I don't usually talk about sharing videos, this is one of those videos that should be shared. I am telling you right now that based on the research that I did, this is really valuable information, and I learned so many dynamics of what sun protection actually is and what we need to be looking for and what we should and should not be worried about or care about. So that being said, let's just get started. Like I said, I thought this was going to be simple. I have a lot of information, and so, but the last thing I'm going to say is this. The intent when I do info chats or the intent when I do videos researching different topics, I am not an expert in any way. I encourage you to do your own research as well or complement my research with your own. I'm not an expert, but I definitely did enough digging so that a normal human like me can get by and can kind of make it in this world without having to write a thesis on what sun protection is. I definitely have quite a bit of information. Okay, so the non-expert is now going to share with you what I learned. Okay, so first of all, by the way, I have notes. Like, that's how serious we are. I feel like I should have like a bibliography too, but like I'm submitting like my thesis or something. Okay, first of all, we are not going to be talking, ironically, about sunblock. We are not going to be talking about sweat resistance, and we are not going to be using the words waterproof. That is because most specifically with sunblock, but with those other phrases as well, the FDA has decided that those terms cannot be used because there is nothing that will 100% block the sun. And so instead we use the term sunscreen. And this is important because we kind of get cocky and we think, well, I put the sunblock on, I can go outside, I am blocked from the sun. No, my friends, you are still exposed to some percentage degree every time you go outside, even though you are wearing sun protection. And so the terms that are allowed, like I said, are sunscreen as well as water resistant. So not sweat resistant, but water resistant. That is terminology that is okay. But I think the biggest deal for me was that we're not even allowed to say sunblock anymore because that just doesn't exist. Also, ironically, you know, when scientists do studies, typically they're very proud of the work that they've done. And it was funny because many of the, not the studies themselves, but the summaries of the studies that I read, they all kind of called themselves out, which made me really appreciate the information that they were trying to tell me. It appears that the only way to truly test sunscreen and sun protection is in kind of a dry laboratory controlled environment. That's where they can get their data and their statistics. And so what they're saying in calling that out is that real life is not like that. And so what we should take away from all of the information and all of the studies is that we need to be overprotective of ourselves and overly cautious when it comes to trying to protect ourselves from the sun. And so if you're asking yourself, should I reapply sunscreen? Is it time? Yes. The answer is yes. And if you ask yourself, is that enough SPF for myself? No. The answer will always be no. If you aren't sure, go more. If you're not sure whether or not, you can't remember what time you last applied sunscreen, and I'll talk about that in a little while, put it on. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about SPF, and then I'm going to get into sunscreen and what that means for us in protection from the sun, as well as for our skin, and as well as for beauty and aging. So SPF stands for sun protection factor, and then it's followed by a number. The reason we want a sun protection factor, I think we all kind of understand, but let me just get a little bit more detail. The reason that we want to protect ourselves from the sun is because the sun puts off UV light or UV rays or UV radiation. And when that penetrates our skin and when it hits a certain degree, it has the potential to damage our DNA. Literally damage it. And that damage can result in some moderate things, but then some scary things like skin cancer, which can kill us. And it's ironic to me because the sun is killing you when you go outside with naked skin. The sun, if it were to die, we would die. We cannot live without a sun. And yet, we need the sun. So we're relying on the thing that can actually hurt us unless we put up a protection from it. Talk about irony. So there is a wide variety of UV light that comes down from the sun. We focus primarily on two of them, from protecting ourselves from two different kinds. UVB light, that is the stuff that gives us sunburn and then also results in skin cancer. It is the most potent when it comes to damaging our DNA. And I was saying to myself, I was like, UVB, why did it get ranked B? Because there's UVA, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Why didn't it get like top billing? Why did it get like second place? No, that is because UVB actually stands for ultraviolet burning. Those are the burning rays that come down from the sun, the sunburn and the skin cancer. And SPF, when we hear about the SPF factor or the SPF number, that is how much it is protecting us from the UVB rays. Those are the most important. By comparison, the other one that we focus on are the UVA rays or the UVA light. This stands for ultraviolet aging, which I thought was fascinating. So this is the stuff that breaks down our skin to give us fine lines and wrinkles. It ages us. So of course, we want to protect ourselves from that. But also, hey, get this. UVA rays can also give you sunburn and can also result or cause skin cancer. And so SPF has to do with dealing with both of those kinds of very specific UV rays. And we are, like I said, most concerned about the UVB because those are the burning ones. Those are it actually should be called UVBC, ultraviolet burning and cancer. So now let's talk about the SPF number, like SPF 30, SPF 50. Is SPF 50 actually exponentially better than SPF 30? Not necessarily. But let me explain what the concept is meant to demonstrate. It is how much quicker your skin will turn red, or how much more time you can be outside before your skin turns red from the sun when you compare protected skin with naked skin or unprotected skin. So just for an example, and this isn't necessarily true, but just for an example, if you could go outside with naked skin, no sun protection on, if you go outside in naked skin and it would take your skin 1 minute before it started to turn red. If you had an SPF of 30 on, you could stay outside 30 times longer, or in this example, for an entire 30 minutes before your skin began to turn red. So it's not minutes, but it actually is the amount of time. So if you were outside for 10 minutes before your skin would turn red, then you could be outside times 30 for 300 minutes before your skin would begin to turn red. So it's the amount of time longer based on that number when you compare protected skin with unprotected skin. Now this is what's interesting. Remember I said we can't use the word sunblock? Well, this is because even if you go outside with an SPF of 30, And you can stay outside 30 times longer than you would normally be able to stay outside before your skin became burned because you were wearing some sun protection. Even with that SPF 30, there are still 3%. When you're talking about a killer, 3% are not good odds. There are still 3% of the UVB, the ultraviolet burning rays, there are still 3% of those rays still penetrating your skin. This is why we can't block the sun. The sun still gets in, but only 3%. Now, by comparison, an SPF of 50, going back to my example, if you could be outside 1 minute before you got sunburn, and with an SPF of 30, you could be outside with 30 minutes. With an SPF of 50, you could be outside for 50 minutes, which is about 20 minutes longer. Not all that much longer when you think about it. But at the same time, that SPF of 50, 2% of the UVB rays, the skin cancer, the sunburn rays, ultraviolet rays, are still able to penetrate, 2%. So 50, not so much better than 30, a little bit better, but not exponentially so. Does that make sense? Isn't that crazy? They don't necessarily, like the 50s, don't actually like kind of broadcast. They're not like, I'm really not that much better than you. I'm only a little bit better than you, but I'm 50, you're only 30. Okay, did I lose you so far? I'm fascinated by this information. P.S. They did not teach this in school. I would have actually been enjoying school. I was very good in school. I hated school though, because I felt like it was boring and irrelevant to what I was going to encounter in life. Give me a lesson about sunscreen and SPF. Yeah, you can bet I'm going to pay attention, especially if you're telling me in high school that I'm going to get premature wrinkles or possibly skin cancer. We have to gouge out a portion of my face because that's where the melanoma is. Yeah, hey, I might wind up paying attention to that. By the way, if as we're going along you have questions, please put questions down below and I will absolutely do my best to answer those. Okay, so we talked about terminology, we talked about ultraviolet light and rays, UVB, UVA, and we talked about SPF and what that actually means. Let's actually talk now about the different kinds of sunscreen. There are basically two different kinds. No, I don't know which one came out first. I kind of don't care because we have the two and you really should focus on one more than the other. That's my own personal opinion. You make your own. I'm going to start by talking about the one that is less favorable because I want to leave you on a good note. I want the last information for you to hear to be the one that you should be paying attention to. So the one that we're not necessarily a fan of are the chemical sunscreens. Ironically, when it comes to chemical sunscreens, they are the ones that are called organic, which I love this. This is the most classic example of how semantics can get you in trouble. We love organic. Everything organic is better. That seems to be the trend nowadays. Yeah, guess what? When it comes to sunscreen, no good. Organic chemical sunscreens, not all that great for your skin. The way that they work is that they are absorbed into your skin, so into the inner layers of your skin. And when the UV light is outside, the UVB and the UVA, it actually takes in the UV light and through a chemical reaction, then disperses and dispenses the heat and uses that as the way to protect your skin. So it kind of takes it in, like attempts to neutralize it and kind of like dispenses the heat. Well, what happens to this chemical sunscreen is the reason that you must reapply so often is because as it works and as it deals with all of the heat and all of the chemical reactions, it begins to dilute itself over time. The reason that we're not so much a fan of chemical sunscreens is because it has been discussed, although it isn't like 100% scientific, but if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. It has been discussed that chemical sunscreens can interact with some of your hormones. I mean, it's not gonna make you miss a period, but it can interact with some of your hormones or just your hormone levels in general. Chemical sunscreens can actually give you allergic reactions because for one, there's a chemical reaction going on underneath your skin, but also it's being so fully absorbed that your skin has to be able to take it in. And so you could potentially have an allergic reaction to that. Also, because they are being absorbed, they have the potential to clog your pores. So that does not make me a fan in any way. I mean, it just all sounds very very scary. Chemical sunscreens, I am not a fan of. Let me tell you, I have to look at my notes. Let me tell you what chemical sunscreens are known as. So when you're looking through your ingredients, you know what to look out for. Avobenzone, oxybenzone, octisalate, homosalate, I said that with the wrong accent, homosalate, not homosalate, homosalate, actinosate, and octocrylene. Me. Basically what you should hear from that list is that you don't like the zones, the eights, or the eens. No zones, eights, or eens. Those are the ones that we want to try to stay away from. By the way, when it comes to makeup, oftentimes, keep this in mind, oftentimes when it comes to the chemical sunscreens, they are often mixed in with the other kind of good sunscreen. And they're kind of tucked away, tucked in there. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. You really want to pay attention to your ingredients. By the way, both Bobbi Brown foundations and Clinique foundations rely primarily on these chemical sunscreens, and then they have a little percentage of the better sunscreen. Again, you make the call. I'm giving you my personal opinion based on the research that I did. So let's talk about the good stuff. The one that I feel is the one, well, it's the one that kind of science really supports, but it's the one that I now support based on doing all my research. Those are specifically called the mineral sunscreens. The inorganic, the non-organic is what actually might be helping us out a little bit more. These are a physical sunscreen. They're not a sunblock. They are a physical sunscreen. They work not by having a chemical reaction underneath your skin and dissipating heat as a result of that chemical reaction. Physical mineral sunscreens actually work by being primarily on the top layer of your skin and reflecting the UV rays. So this is kind of where the term sunblock was born, because we thought we were blocking the sun and reflecting the sun. But remember, 2 to 3% of the UVB rays are still penetrating, even with an amazing kind of sunscreen. So this one's a little bit easier. The ingredients that represent the mineral or the physical sunscreens are zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. So we like the oxides. If you can't remember when you're in the store and you're like, oh my God, I need to pick up emergency sunscreen. By the way, it doesn't matter at that point which one you're getting. But if you're trying to be a little bit more specific, you want to focus on the oxides and not the zones, the eights, or the eens. You want the oxides. You get very scientific here. Now, the mineral sunscreens didn't have the best reputation, even though they were actually giving us better sun protection. They weren't well liked. The reason for that was because they had to sit on the surface of your skin, and I use that term loosely, and I'll get into that in a second. I mean, they're not only sitting, your face has holes and pores, so some of it's getting in there, but predominantly it works by sitting on the top. So it had to be thicker. It had to be something that wasn't going to slide or run off your face very easily. Mineral sunscreens are also the ones that give you the white cast. So the darker your skin tone, the grumpier that sunscreen is going to make you. And so what we were hearing was that people didn't want to put white chalk all over their face and would go without. And so I am happy to report that there has been an overall consensus that as technology has gotten better, and as our development of sunscreens has gotten better, they're not quite as thick, and they definitely have a reduced white cast. And even more so, what I have found is that they will go on white, but they really will blend in. And so thank goodness, because again, the whole chalk look, not really so exciting. In theory, the mineral physical sunscreens will last longer. That is affected by how dry your skin stays. So obviously the more you sweat, the more likely it is to wipe away. So in theory, they can last longer, whereas the chemical sunscreens, whether you sweat or not, they will degrade over time and a little bit quicker, again, as a result of those chemical reactions. They can't stay as potent as they do when you first apply, but the physical reflective sunscreens can last longer the drier that you stay. So there's the drier you stay, the less risk there is of just kind of wiping it away. But obviously, if you are sweaty or you're swimming, you are potentially removing that reflective layer of sunscreen. Okay, so in addition to those benefits, there's a couple other reasons why I personally prefer the mineral sunscreens. That is because they are less likely to clog your pores, because it's not going deep into your pores. Again, it is staying predominantly on the top of your skin. And so there's less likely for a reaction. There's less likely for there to be an interaction with your hormones, and it is overall less likely to clog your pores. And so those with acne-prone skin in particular are strongly guided towards the mineral oxide forms of sunscreen. And then for you environmentalists, as a bonus, the oxide or the mineral sunscreens are actually friendlier to our coral reefs. Because yes, when you go in the water, the sunscreen, whatever kind, will wash off. And there's a lot of people in the ocean. And so I guess there was concern and risk for the coral reefs. And so the mineral sunscreens are actually much friendlier towards those guys. So let me make a couple of comments about, and I kind of talked about it a little bit as we were going, but let me just make a couple comments about how the mineral and the chemical sunscreens are in fact the same. Even though they work differently, they do have some similarities. They both do absorb into your skin. I mean, mineral sunscreen is not a glue that you're just putting on like the top layer of your skin. There is some absorption that occurs. It's just that there's kind of a higher level or a deeper absorption when it comes to the chemical sunscreens, because that's how they work. They work when they're down in underneath your skin, and that's how they're able to do their whole chemical reaction thing. Even though the mineral sunscreen tends to last longer, you must reapply both of them. Like I said, the chemical sunscreen wears itself out by doing all that work under your skin, and because it's more of a surface product, the physical sunscreen or the mineral sunscreen isn't going to last. Because if you're out in the sun, even if you're not a sweater, you're probably going to sweat a little bit. And so, and then naturally over time too, products wear away with just natural exposure to the sun. So you have to reapply both of those as well. You're not in a sunscreen bubble when you're wearing the mineral sunscreen. So what should you take away from this video and my info chat with you? Wear sunscreen. I don't care what kind it is. The sun is a killer, and it is attempting to damage our DNA. It is attempting to give us skin cancer. And especially depending on your genetics or what your history has been like, protect yourself. I don't care which one you wear. I don't care if you absolutely swear off chemical sunscreens, but that's all you have access to. Wear it. And be overprotective. Like I said, if you're not sure if it's time to reapply, it is. And so, I mean, you cannot harm yourself by doing too much. I always have this phrase, like everything in balance and moderation. Do not moderate your sunscreen. Use it whenever, wherever, all over. Take like a sunscreen bath if necessary. You actually can't do that. Wouldn't that be cool if we could do that? I should get on that. That's a good idea. So we are wearing sunscreen. Let me give you a couple of guidelines according to the Skin Cancer Foundation. They gave out a whole bunch of stats and I came up with this thing. It's called the 230-230. That's to help you remember. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to use 2 tablespoons. That is a full ounce. 2 tablespoons of sunscreen. You can never put on too much. I mean, you can if you suddenly are like making a paste and it's not like doing anything. But you're aiming for 2 tablespoons. This is not the time to be conservative. You're aiming for 2 tablespoons and a minimum SPF of 30. Anything less than that, you are not doing yourself any favors. Minimum of 30. 15 used to be the standard. We've raised it. SPF of 30. So 2 tablespoons, SPF of 30. The other thing you want to think about when I said 230, you want to think every 2 hours. Reapply every 2 hours and a minimum of 30 minutes before you even go outside. Doesn't even matter which sunscreen you're using, 30 minutes before. You have to give it time to get ready. It's like the warm up. You know, like when you do a workout, you got to warm up. You can't just jump in right away. Do not jump right into the cold pool. It's very uncomfortable. Don't do it. So 230, 2 tablespoons, SPF of 30, every 2 hours, at least 30 minutes before you go out. Finally, you want to read the label. You want to make sure that your sunscreen is water resistant. If it claims to be waterproof, it's lying. And I don't know what else it might be lying about. So look for it to say water resistance and also broad spectrum. Broad spectrum absolutely means that it will protect you against UVB, ultraviolet burning and skin cancer, and against the UVAs, the ultraviolet aging, as well as burning and skin cancer. So you want it to be SPF 30, broad spectrum, water resistant. Also, let me say this, there's a couple other just little anomalies that I want to highlight. The trend has been that if you think you've got an SPF 50, like I was explaining, well, we're super protected now. No, you're not. So wearing higher SPFs, we're giving us a false sense of security. So keep that in mind. Again, every 2 hours, doesn't even matter. Notice I didn't even give an SPF factor number. It doesn't matter. Every 2 hours, 30 minutes before. The other thing is, SPF is not the only protection that you should be using. This is why they have hats. This is why we have light long sleeve clothing. This is why, and I didn't research this, but maybe you could, this is why that there's like surfing clothing that has an SPF factor. Honestly, it still means your skin is not 100% exposed to the skin and you can comfortably go in the water and go surfing. It cannot hurt. There is also this thing called shade. Try as best you can not to live your life under the sun. It's the UV rays coming down from the sun that are not our friend. Anyway, that's what I have for you. Please absolutely leave your questions down below. I will do my best to answer any and all of them. Also, along with this idea of me doing info chats, I had the best time. Did you? I love putting together this kind of information and trying to simplify something that seemed like was beyond me, that I didn't really, I learned so much. I'm mad. I'm 41. How am I learning this now? Why didn't I look into it before? I don't know. I guess I was just used to being told what, I mean, the general rule was wear sunscreen. Okay. I had no idea there was a kind and a style and one that was friendlier to my skin. Oh, by the way, the SPF moisturizer that I have been using for years is by Elta MD. They are a broad spectrum. They use mineral sunscreen. They are the oxide people. You can find them on Amazon. I will leave the name of it down below. But now you know what to look for. So check out the products that you're already using. As you research other products, now you know what to look for. So as I was saying, what other things do you want to learn about? What other particular ingredients or concepts or practices, beauty practices, health practices, anti-aging practices, thinking practices? What else would you like to learn about? I would love to start looking it up and bring you another info chat. Anyway, like I said, again, thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you found it even a little bit helpful. Subscribe if you think about it. Otherwise, either way, I hope you have a really good rest of the day in the sun, under sunscreen, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. In the meantime, thanks.